Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. Here in the studio today, I have Laura Corcoran. Laura is a holistic psychologist, and she helps ambitious women correct soul patterns, heal trauma, and claim their highest purpose. Now, for those of you who are avid listeners of the podcast, you will remember that Laura actually joined me in person in Melbourne in the studio. Gosh, it would have been a while ago now. It was so cool when we had that first experience. However, there's been a lot happening in Laura's life. And we catch up when we can, and we were chatting the other day, and we just thought we need to record another episode. What you're going through at the moment is there's a lot happening, and when you said that you were even open to the idea to share right now, I just thought, oh my goodness, what a gift, what an amazing opportunity to give our audience to hear from somebody who's actually in it, rather than often the story, which is, I hit the adversity point, I went through it, now I'm out the other side and everything is amazing. So we really are going to dive deep today and really go there. But Laura, for those who perhaps haven't heard your previous episode, and if you haven't, I'm going to link it in the show notes so you can go check that out as well. Could we start with some nice, easy questions? To allow the people to get to know you, I would love to know, what does an average day look like? Where do you live? And what do you do for fun?
Oh, I love that. An average day, I guess recently, given my transition, which we'll get into, I've had to create more structure, which I think my whole life I've been so adverse to structure. I'm just like, I'm flowy, and if you give me structure, I'm going to rebel against it. But it's been really amazing for grinding. So at the moment, I will get up. I've actually been doing this. If anyone is into, I think it's fascia, like the muscles
Oh,
or the
yeah.
whatever the hell it is under your skin. So I've been
Mm.
really wanting to help my skin. And I'm 42, so I'm like, okay, how can I do this more naturally? And then, as you kind of set an intention, things come into your vortex. And there was this woman that was doing a 30-day challenge, and what it was, and I was like, oh, great, skin, it's natural, I'm going to give it a go. But it's actually a fascia program where you're massaging your neck and your shoulders and your clavicle and your chest and your face and it's like a full self-love routine, but it does your lymphatic system and your central nervous system in one. So I do that
Wow.
every morning, for 35 minutes. And I feel like that's like three things in one. It's self-love, it's like really detoxing my body, and it's the central nervous system. Then I'll take myself out into nature. I've got a beautiful 6-month-old baby that keeps me very
Mm-hmm.
busy. So in the
Yes,
mix
you
of all of
do.
that, I'm juggling her, and I'm running a successful business too, holding space for women. So amongst all of that, I'm Voxering clients, jumping on podcasts with amazing women like you. But basically, the whole day is filtered between a balance of self-care and purpose.
Mm.
And that could change day to day, but I have been trying to be a bit more structured recently.
It's one of the things that I find so inspiring about you is I will never hear from you the words, I don't have enough time. Like it's
Yeah.
just like you're one of the, well, I don't know how to frame this. Like you're the opposite of someone who has a lot of excuses. Like it's just you just get it done, which I absolutely
Yeah.
love. I'm very much the same, and I think it's just about, it doesn't matter what's going on. Like we have the decision every day of what we're going to prioritize. So I love,
Mm.
love, love that you're making that time in the morning with a 6-month-old baby to still have that self-care, that reconnection, that detoxification, that beautiful
Mm.
process, and picking things up and putting them down in different seasons of your life as well, not being
Yeah.
totally fixed on, well, I did breath work, so I can only do breath work, or it was meditation, and so I can only do meditation. Like that's
Mm.
something really new that I haven't heard you talk about before. So that's really cool. And did you recently move?
Yeah. I did. I did. So I'm in
Yes.
Brisbane. So I've
Ah,
moved
you're in
from the Gold
Brisbane.
Coast back to Brisbane, which has
And
been
how's that been?
really transformational is the word that I would use. It's almost like I've come back to childhood and had to revisit some places that I think that I'd ignored that needed to be transformed. So that has
Mm,
been really beautiful, and confronting at the same time. But as you know,
mm,
I don't make excuses, and I'm like, it's here for me. So let's feel what's been kind of like swirling for years underneath the surface that I thought that I'd actually dealt with and I hadn't.
I'm looking forward to talking a lot more about that a little later in the episode. And finally, Laura, what do you do for fun these days, my love?
Um, I think I lost that a little bit, if I'm honest. I lost the fun side of me for a while. I feel like I was in survival mode for a long time, but now what I'm actually doing is I'm finding really funny reels on Instagram.
It's nothing better.
Do you know the ones, I don't know what it is with me, but you know when people jump out at someone and it scares the shit out of them? Like there was this, I just die laughing. So obviously I do that, but my biggest one is connecting with amazing women that elevate me, which I've been doing a lot more of. So the funny side is kind of like zoning out, just watching other stuff that makes me laugh. And then connection with women talking about expansive stuff and future vision. It's my ideal fun thing to do.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've asked you to bring in a photo today. Now, this photo is probably going to be from a more recent time in your life, whereas the first photo that we spoke about when you first came onto the show was, a little while ago. This is really alive for you right now. So, Laura, I would love for you to please describe for our listeners this behind the smile photo that you've chosen to bring in today from a time in your life where you've been presenting perhaps one version of yourself to the outside world, but the truth is you've been working through some pretty heavy internal stuff. Could you describe for our listeners what the photo looks like? And for those watching along, I'm going to bring it up on the screen now. And then please go into what was actually going on for you at that time in your life.
Yeah. When you asked me this and I was scrolling through, there were so many pictures, and I was like, but I felt the same in all of them, if I'm honest. So in this particular picture, I'm with my son actually, and he was getting his haircut, and I'd just given birth maybe 4 weeks before. And it's this beautiful picture of me and him, and he's pulling this funny face behind me, and I'm like full smiling, fresh hair. I looked fresh as anything, given that I'd just literally given birth. And basically underneath that was a woman that was in deep survival mode and pretending that she had her shit together. There was no mess to see. I could get up and look after myself and look after everyone else around me. But underneath I was really struggling, and I didn't realize how much I was struggling until I was out of the situation to look back and go, oh my God, my body is actually not knowing what to do with this calmness. It was like I can finally feel like I can breathe. So that and there were so many pictures where I was smiling, and it was really hard because I'm such an optimistic person. So I would look at that picture and my mind would automatically go, oh, I remember that because I went to get my son's haircut and we're having such a beautiful morning. But really underneath it, yeah, I can mask it all with all of the positive bypassing, but underneath all of that was a woman that was really struggling. Yeah.
How long do you think you were in that phase for?
I think I've been in it my whole life, Ash, if I'm honest. And I think the last 4 years really ramped it up in terms of the hyper independence, the hyper vigilance, the I don't need anyone. It was not that I actually felt that in the moment, but it was like I can be the one that holds it all. I have no choice because I'm financially independent and I've got all this time freedom, and I'm the one that can and has space for all of this. And I feel like it's been a long outdated program for such a long time of being that woman that can't receive support, doesn't feel she can trust to receive support without feeling guilt or having projected guilt or it being held against her at some point. So it was this, subconscious way of me, well, if I just do it all, I will never have to feel that way. But I do think the biggest part has been like the last 4 years that it's really kind of like chosen me to elevate past it. I couldn't dodge it anymore, Ash.
Damn it. It's like we're running so fast, but eventually it always catches up with us. I think it's, and I
Yeah.
truly believe sometimes these lessons come to us when we're ready to receive them as
Mm.
well, like, so it sounds like this was your time. So tell me what was going on? Like what has it been about the last 4 years that has brought this to your attention, and what have you had to face?
Well, my relationship, I
Mm,
feel, I think we might have touched it on the last podcast.
mm,
Um, my relationship's been a huge catalyst for God, so much growth for me, Ash, if I'm honest. And that's why I
mm,
really wanted to share it while I was in the rawness of it, still navigating through, because there's still emotions. And I really want to teach people that we can often go into victim consciousness. And I definitely did do that, but how we can remain in the process and still take radical responsibility for our part in the dynamic, what we co-created, what is here for me.
mm,
Because I feel like through that is when you transform quickly. It feels
mm,
harder because you have to face off with those parts that you just want to blame everyone for. Um,
mm.
and that's really why I wanted to share it, because, as you said, when we're through it, it's, oh, I'm good now. And it's almost like you can't remember because you've already transitioned through, you've already elevated, you're already in a new identity. And it's like you can't even go back to that space to remember how difficult it was.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, my relationship has been my biggest catalyst. He was my greatest mirror,
Mm.
one that I could not run from. Brought up all of my shadows, brought up all of my manipulative and controlling ways. Just I was faced with a lot, a lot.
Yeah, it is confronting, isn't it? What do they say?
It is.
Relationships are our greatest mirrors. You just
Yeah.
mentioned something then, Laura, which was really interesting, this victim consciousness. Can you go
Mm.
into that a little bit more, and what is the manifestation of that for you, and perhaps how could other people relate to that? Maybe someone who is stuck in that right now and is unable to see it for themselves. What would it look like?
Yeah, I love that question because I'm probably more aware of it now than ever, within myself. And I honestly believe it's the biggest pathology in society. I think it's the thing that leads to labels, to mental health issues, to separations, to disconnection, to everything. I really think. So I'm like on this big mission now to be like, I really want to free people from this. So victim consciousness is basically when we make how we feel someone else's problem or what's happened to us the issue. So we become a victim to the thing or to the person or to our past. And as being a psychologist, I believe there's, a time and space for talk therapy. I think it's amazing. We're doing it now. But I do think a lot of people can become stuck in victim consciousness when there's a lot of overly validating points. And, that must have been really hard that mom and dad treated you that way. And there's no strength in that. So it's kind of like what I've come to learn, because obviously I've sat on that side of the table and the opposite side of the table. What I've come to learn is that when we do take responsibility, which is really difficult, and I've worked with women that have been through horrific trauma, to say that, where did I co-create that in my life?
Mm,
What energy is within me that believes that I deserve to attract this in my life? What wounds are here for me that feel familiar within this dynamic, this chaos? That
mm,
is one the most humbling thing you can do, to have such humility around it. And it's not to blame and shame yourself, because I did that too. That's again victim. Oh my God, it's my fault. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. I should have changed that. The anxious attachment kind of stuff. Again, making yourself the victim, and it's quite sneaky. It'll make
mm,
you the victim to other people and other people the villain, and then you'll turn that victimness against yourself as well. So in those moments, it's compassion and it's love that you'd built this survival strategy and this armor around yourself that once really protected you and now is really detrimental to your growth and evolution in life.
mm,
So I feel like that is the rawest thing you can do, is kind of like not go, it's my fault. I did something wrong, but compassion and love of, we did the best in that situation. And, the whole cliche saying, now we know better, we do better. It's not always the case, Ash. I knew better and I
mhm.
didn't always do better,
Mm,
But it's loving yourself through that, where you feel so unsafe in your body that you're giving yourself that sense of safety and groundedness and calmness. And the things that I've had to do specifically, I mean, for the last 4 years, I've gone deeper into it than ever before, but the last 4 weeks, in terms of what I've had to do to build that safety within my own system, to be aware of where I want to get validation from outside of myself, where so I want someone to tell me that, I was a victim in that and it wasn't my fault. And it's really sneaky. You want to have these
mm,
side conversations, and me sitting with
mm,
that and validating myself in it. It was almost like I got to a point where I was like I was getting annoyed at myself. I was like, Laura, you're engaging in these conversations because you want him to be validated, and it's not reprieving you. How many times do
mm.
you want to be met with it? Yes, for 5 minutes, yes, for 10 minutes, and you're back into the grief pit again, or the swirling vortex of, I just want to fucking go to the moon and everyone leave me alone. I just want to
Mm,
run. Um,
mm,
but instead turning that towards myself and being like, what do I need? And then that part of me getting irritated and frustration of like, it doesn't matter what you need, you just need someone else to tell you what it is you need to hear. And I'm like, no, no, the battle has been real, but really
yeah.
beautiful in a sense. So all of that is victim consciousness, where you're outsourcing your power one outside of yourself, even if it feels positive.
Mm,
Someone's boosting you up, and then all of a sudden you feel this sense of expansion, and you're like, oh, I'm ready to go again. Where before that, that like on Instagram or that phone call where someone told you how amazing you feel like shit, you
mm,
know? Where it's like
mm,
really you becoming the creator of your own life, your source of your
mm,
own light, um,
mm.
where you don't need to outsource any of that.
It's so, so
Mm.
powerful what you are saying right now. And it reminds me a lot of in 12 step, we do this process in step 4 where we write down all of our resentments, anybody that's ever upset us before, we write it down. We look at what they did. We look at what it brought up in us and how it made us feel. And then the really spicy part is columns 4 and 5, where we then have to look at, and what was the part that I played in all of
Mm.
that? And it is such a potent step, because by the time you get through that list of however many, some people, it's hundreds of resentments and fears. By the time you get through that list and you see, the common denominator, the familiar behaviors that continue to play out in different ways, there's these consistent threads. Once you
Mm.
identify that, then you can change it. And it's what you said so beautifully, it's about
Mm.
empowering yourself. Because if I'm sitting here blaming everyone else for my misfortunes, number one, I'm handing my power over to them, because I can't change them.
Mm.
But also I stay stuck. Whereas I now know that if I can, in any given situation, I mean, I even had something come up recently with somebody who was really getting underneath my skin, and I felt really judged. And
Mm.
I thought to myself, wow, and in that I am judging her. And it's just, like you said, the mirror. And I just thought to myself, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because if I had just sat there being pissed off at this person and then picking up the phone and trying to get people on board to bitch about her with me, and like, what's that doing? It's just fueling that negative feeling inside my body. And I don't want those feelings and emotions growing inside of me. Like, it's so much more
Mm.
empowering to say, that's really interesting. What has this brought up in me? What did I do to set the ball rolling? And what can I do to change it so that I can change
So
me,
true.
not the other person?
Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean, I'm really curious to know,
Yeah.
how are you, because this is fresh. So,
Mm.
relationship breakup, you said 4 weeks ago, and you have a 6-month-old beautiful baby girl.
Yeah.
How did you overcome? I mean, I have two questions that I want to ask on this. Firstly, was,
Mhm.
when did you know? And then number two, how did you overcome the fear? Because there must have been a number of layers of fear that came up with that decision, that I think obviously you got to a point where you knew you had to make it. But please share a little more about that if you can.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's been a multiple moments in the relationship where I was like, this doesn't feel aligned. I mean, I've come to understand that my survival strategy is to run, because I ran and then it met me here. under the roof of my
Mm,
parents, which is really interesting. So
mm,
that's took me deeper again. Um, and to have a lot more humility. But I think, I can sit here now and say, oh, there was multiple moments that I knew, but I also don't know if I was creating that because I when we're talking about subconscious programs, I'm seeing what feels familiar to me. So I'm seeing that he's not showing up for me. He's not meeting my needs. He's not he's not, I'm asking for something and he's not able to give it. So there was definitely inconsistencies in terms of our needs being met and me asking for safety, or I don't feel safe when you do that, and it keep happening, all of these kind of things, which meant that he needed to do the work. So the separation needed to happen because now beautifully he's doing it. I feel like the comfortability was just, it wasn't helping either party. The rock bottom moment, Ash.
mhm.
Um, so I feel like there was multiple points throughout where I was just like, no, I'm going to stay. And one of the biggest thing is I was so stubborn where I was like, I don't believe that anyone can make me feel safe outside of myself, again, giving my power away. I'm like, no, I actually don't think that's the thing. I think that I can make myself feel safe regardless of what I'm met with in the external. But it's not true. What I've come
Mhm.
to understand as a feminine woman, our bodies are so intuitive that when it picks up on danger per se, or threat, whether it's raised voice over and over and over, or perceived aggression, or whatever, removing yourself, which then organically flows up abandonment for us, because primarily as women, we need to feel that sense of community. So it's not even a wound. And I kept thinking, oh, it's a wound, I can heal it, it's a wound, when I actually believe it's actually biology.
Mm.
So there was so many different moments where I was like, every single day, Ash, I was exhausted because I was regulating my central nervous system to the high hills. Like every day I was putting on music, I was breathing, I was intuitively dancing, I was affirming, I was on the water, and I was like, oh yeah, I feel good. But then as soon as we were back into the energy of each other, it was like this, oh. And I was just like, everything that I believe about the law of transmutation, like your energies, like calibrate to the same frequency. So if I
Mm.
just get my energy up and I just, surely he'll meet me there, or surely, but you can hear so desperate to drag him to where I am.
I was going to say, that sounds exhausting, hun.
Exhausting. It was
Like
exhausting.
you just after a while, and it's so hard, isn't it? I remember
Mm.
feeling, a similar way when I ended my marriage.
Mm.
I just got into this point where I knew that almost, for lack of a better phrase, like I had to save myself. And I couldn't do it for both of us. And Laura, just the other day, I caught up with my ex-husband. He was down here in Melbourne picking something up. And we went for a coffee, and he said something so kind and loving. He looked me dead in the eyes and he just said, Ash, I just want to thank you,
Mm.
because I was never going to leave. And, he's now clean and sober and doing his thing. And I'm the same. And we were never going to be able to make it work together because, well, I don't know if I even have the answer to that, but
Mm.
I do what I do identify with what you shared, was that there was this comfortability where nothing was going to change if we stayed together.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so true. And you think you try everything,
Mm.
especially, I mean, and I didn't actually realize, and this is where everything kind of like just opened me up, because obviously I've had two children before, but I'm obviously a different woman now, and it was a full rebirth again of like, you actually want to be softened, Laura. You actually want to be in your feminine. You actually want to slow down. Where before, if you would have even mentioned those words to me with my previous two kids, I wouldn't have even known what that meant. Definitely
Mm.
had 12 months off with my children previously, but I was itching and there was always busyness going on in my life. Where this time I really craved, I was like, I just don't want to do anything for 3 months. And so that initiated me into vulnerability and asking my partner to hold me in that and support me in that financially, or whatever it might have been. And there was just a friction point, and our
Mm.
wounds were just like, so even though I was opening, softening, asking for what I needed, the wounds were activated, and shame on his part, I feel. And it was just this mismatch. And like, I do believe what you're saying. It doesn't matter whether it was a survival strategy of mine to run, but my body, and I remember it as clear as day, very similar to when I left the government roles, my body was like, you got to go. It's time to
Mm.
go. So, you know, and even though like I've been running my business and I birthed a baby and I'm, you know, all the things, there was just this deep yearning within me that I was like, I actually would just want to be held. I just want to be supported. I just want to not have to do it all, like get up in the middle of the night and have the dinner prepared and clean the house. And oh, it was just the things that went on because Lani just screams in the car and Lockie like is at private school 45 minutes away from where we lived. So even that twice a day. So central nervous
So
system,
dysregulating for your
so
nervous system.
dysregulated.
Oh.
So not only are you in like a survival mode because you've just given birth, um, and there was some trauma after that, like in terms of my body, but all of that is such beautiful lessons too. I'm then having to deal with that and then having to deal with the dynamic of the environment. And I'm just like, oh, I need to. So, literally, when you're saying, like, how did you overcome? I was terrified. I didn't overcome the fear. And I think that's the point. I think a lot of us think we need to overcome the fear, we need to do energy work, and we need to heal the wounded part before we do the thing. And it's like, no, sometimes you need to do it terrified. Sometimes you need to do it without knowing where the hell you're going to land. But it's just a feeling that this constant contraction in your body is your body screaming. You need some space. You need to relax. You need to rest, you know? So it was very dramatic. So I knew once I'd made that decision, I had to, and even I remember like calling the packers because I had to shift my whole home for it to happen and detach from the house on the water, the facade, Ash, the home on the
Yeah.
water, my walk to the coffee shop. And I was like, you know, I was coming up with all these excuses like, but I'm not going to heal if I'm not near the water. And I'm not going to feel expansive if I'm not near the water. And yeah, there's some truth in that. But what I've come to learn here is I'm near the bush. I can actually create the same feeling wherever I am. But I had to
Yeah.
force myself to let go of that resistance and full accept where I am to feel
Mm.
that. So yeah, in terms of how did I overcome the terror, I didn't. How did I overcome the fear? By
Yeah.
doing it and
Mm.
literally getting. I didn't really ask for support either. Not sorry, not from family or friends, even though it was offered. I just outsourced and paid for packers, removalists, a shed to put all of my stuff in. So
Mm.
within 3 days, I was out.
Wow. Well, do
Yeah,
you think there was part of you that thought I need to do this quickly and efficiently in case I change my mind?
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. There was
Mm.
well, I'd changed around so many times, and this
Yeah.
is why I knew that I needed to move because we'd been through multiple separations, and you know, because it was my home, he would just come back in, and I'd allow
Mm.
him back in, you know, because I
Mm.
wanted the change, and I wanted so desperately for us to work. So this was now I don't have that option because our bodies become physiologically addicted to
Mm.
the cycle of that. So I knew I
Mm.
needed to withdraw. So I came back to my parents' house, which again is a professional woman who's lived out of home for God since I was 18. So much
Mm.
shame came up around that.
Yeah,
So
that
much
was going to be,
shame.
I'd love to talk about shame.
Mhm.
Tell me, how has that come up for you? Like moving back in with mum and dad, not staying with Lani's father. I mean, there must be so many stories that come up to challenge you in that.
So many. Yeah, it's humbled me massively in terms of I've had to say to myself, like when the shames come up, you know, it was all about like, what are people going to think about me? Like,
Mm.
they're going to think that I'm failing. I'm supposed to be this professional woman. I'm supposed to have my shit together. And I'm in this work, right? But anyone who knows that I'm in it knows how vulnerable I am. Like, every client knows about what I'm going through, but they know I don't become a
Mm.
victim to it. So they just find it so empowering. But well, at first it was like I can't do that and I can't tell anyone what's actually going on in my life. That was that whole armor of I'm not going to let anybody really in and see me. So first I had to share it, which was shameful and embarrassing. But again, that was just that part of me again that has to have it together. I've always felt like the black sheep. I've always felt like the one that's been different. And here I am again doing something that's very different, that's seen in society's eyes or the family eyes. But I think what's actually happened through that whole shame is just fully claiming who I am.
Mm.
Like, like life does not have to look like a linear fashion. And I think that's where a lot of us become trapped. That what are people going to think about me? But this is the way it's supposed to be. And it's kind of like really understanding, I think, something that I truly embody, that if it doesn't feel aligned for me, I move. It doesn't
Mm.
matter, because I know that if I'm not thriving, my kids aren't thriving. If I'm not
Mm.
expansive, my environment's not expansive. And I think a lot of us become trapped in that. And I did stay with Ben, my first partner, for that reason, like the family unit, and we had the white picket fence, and our life was amazing, but I was miserable and it was affecting the kids. So I know that I'm the co-regulator and I'm here to create intergenerational change
Mm.
in a big way. I don't know what I was configuring up there in the stars of like, oh, my soul contracts are going to be. But I'm like,
You're like-
okay, let's go.
yeah,
Um,
you were ticking all the boxes before you
I
came
think I
down this
was.
time.
I think I was. I can. I can take that on. I can hold
Give
that.
it to me all. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for me, it's that, it's knowing that even though it doesn't look the right way to everybody outside of me, it feels good for me. And from that, I'm teaching my kids also, and the women that I support around me, that you have to keep choosing your highest timeline, no matter how uncomfortable and terrifying it feels.
Mm.
It's having that courage to take very bold, quick action. And when you're in the vortex of it as well, similar to what I'm in now, it's sometimes you want to just go back to the old life and go, oh, I just want to pretend again. But also there's this feeling now, this openness of what is manifesting for my next jump.
Mm.
And that feels really good. And that's what I'm
Mm.
looking forward to. Yeah.
Beautiful. Can we talk about grief for a moment? Because
Sure.
you're right in it at the moment. You're in the grief, and I'm curious to know how you allow that to move through you, because I know you're not someone who avoids this stuff. I know you
Mm.
feel it to heal it. How do you let yourself sit in that process whilst also showing up as a professional, holding space for other women and, of course, your children as well?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's what I've come to do is, one, be open and honest about my journey to everyone. So, again, not from that victim state of, but it's, hey guys, going through a process at the moment. I'll be back with you in half an hour, because as you know, I will move through it as quickly as I possibly can. But there was some, and it comes like in ebbs and flows throughout the day. I think the thing we need to understand is it's not here in a block. It's
Mm.
only blocked when we become the victim to it. That's when it feels heavy and dense. And sometimes you have to go into that rant and just be like, it's their fault. Like, whatever you need to get out of you, you have to get it out. But then when you come back to really trust that this is about my soul correction, that, Sam came into my life as one of my greatest teachers, not an enemy, that I'm the main character in this life, that I chose this way before I even knew, that I need to be with this feeling of, I just want someone to rescue me and save me and take the pain away from me. Um, and there was a point the other night where I was feeling like quite anxious, and I was just like, there's something going on in my body. And then instantly I wanted a bottle of wine. It happens every single time. I want to go buy a packet of cigarettes. I want anything to take me out of that feeling. But the awareness part of me recognizing this is like, oh, I'm feeling uncomfortable in my body. I'm just going to be, can I just breathe into that space? I'll actually come out of my head and I'll focus on where the sensation is. So I'll face the sensation rather than run from it. And I'll
Mm.
just, so if it's in my chest and it feels contracted, I will breathe and expand it. I won't make it smaller. I'll breathe and expand it. I might bring some golden light into it. And then what I find is, and I normally place a hand on my womb, my heart, is that the emotion starts to swirl And then some, like I have some form of emotional release. Now, when there's anger, I'll do wall pushes and then I'll have an emotional release. But that's
What's
how
a
I
wall
usually do it.
push?
So, like, I just, as if you're trying to push over a tree, is the only way I can describe it.
Wow. All
Like,
right.
palms on the wall and big, deep breath in, and you're pushing with all of your strength as if you're trying. It actually makes you feel like Superwoman, if I'm honest. I'm like,
No.
I'm sure I can push this wall over. Um, but you're also releasing that rage energy that as women we need to. Like, it's actually healthy to do that. And then you might have a cry or you might feel liberated or I don't know, whatever emotion comes through for you. But I just won't do one practice. So I'll be with the emotion first. I'll expand into it. I won't avoid it. I'll tell it, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving you. I'm not abandoning you. Um, and then depending on what I was feeling, like I'll ask that part of me, like this morning I asked, like I was feeling this irritated feeling. I was like, what is it that you need or what's going on for you? And it was interesting because it was contradicting. It was like, I feel really alone and I want everyone to leave me alone. Really
Mm.
interesting. And this is where the subconscious programs come in, that I feel alone, but I'll create it to get the feeling that feels familiar for me, even though I don't like it. Even though it's the biggest fear I have, we create it subconsciously to feel that familiar. See, I'm alone, you know? So so I'm like talking to that part of me and I'm like,
Mm.
and I just visualized putting her into a safe room and she had a teddy and I held her. And then when I knew what it was actually about being alone, and about wanting to push people away, I then did an EFT tapping sequence on it, which was
Mm.
tapping into first, you have to tap into, I feel really alone. I feel like I just don't want to be here anymore. I don't want anyone around me. I want to go to the moon. I'm sick of people pressuring me, whatever. You've got to tap through how you actually feel. And then the second round, you'll tap into, I can open myself to be held. It's
Mm.
safe to be supported,
Mm.
the opposite. So that was a practice that I did this morning. And that's how I will
Wow.
sit in that. And it's literally, we're talking 20 minutes maybe, but like once you get used to feeling into your body, you kind of know if you need more. So you
Mm-hmm.
might do a different practice or something else. But really, all of the practice is about being with yourself. And I know for people listening, it's one of the hardest things to do when people go, what do you mean? Just be with yourself. And
Yeah.
we're so against it because we've never been with ourselves to even understand what that means. But it just means literally just sit with the feeling and breathe into
Yeah.
it and not create a story from the feeling.
It's funny you say that. I have a client who I've been working with for a little over a year now, and she had a huge breakthrough in the last couple
Amazing.
of weeks. And she sent me this message, and she's like, "Oh my God, I finally did it. I finally," because I always talk about, you need to sit in the shit. And she's like, "I've been sitting in the shit. Now it's fine." Like something shifts, but you've got to sit in
Amazing.
it. You've got to,
You
she's
do.
like, and it felt like nothing was happening for the longest time. And then she's like, I had a complete shift in the way I perceived life. Like it's this like 180 turn, and now
Mhm.
everything is so much better. But oh my
Mhm.
goodness, the resilience that it takes to just sit and trust
Yeah,
rather than drink it away, fuck it away, smoke it away, like all the things that we look to do,
so
you
true.
know, moving right through it. Yeah, it's good
Yeah,
stuff.
it is. And it's the grief process, I truly believe, everyone says, and there's research maybe around grief has different life stages, and it does, but I truly believe, um, and the way that I view it is that every single person has come into my life for me. And, I've not lost them because they've given me a part of me back. So it's like, I don't see it as a loss, even though I might, think of memories and cry about them. It normally comes from a place of gratitude. It doesn't mean that you can't go through that initial phase, but the grief part is actually about you. It's about
Mm.
you grieving that part of you, that identity of who you were with that person or who you were in that stage of your life. And I honestly think the perception shift around that, about really remembering that you chose these people way before you got here to come into your life to help with your elevation. I always go, what did they teach me after the rage
Mm.
processes?
Yes,
But then it's like,
definitely.
what did they teach me? Or even if it was like a loss of someone that was close to me, I still do the same thing. what
Mm.
what did they teach me? How did they, what were the messages that they left to me, and it always brings this happiness into my body. And it's not spiritual bypass, because like I said, I will first feel the sadness, the grief, the loss, the mourning, but then I will, once I'm kind of like, I feel a shift throughout when I've grieved, and then I'll come back to the polarity of, what did they teach me? Why did they come into my life? And how can I carry that forward?
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to, again, empower yourself and allow yourself to move forward rather than staying stuck. I'm
Yeah.
curious, Laura, do you feel like perhaps on a soul level, when you fell pregnant, I mean, was there ever a thought of, this may not work out, but I'm going to go ahead with this pregnancy anyway? Like, what were the fears that came up then? Because you were 41 when you fell pregnant, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. So it's like there's a couple of complexities there. There's age, there's the relationship and where that's currently at. I mean, how did you mentally process all of that and come to that decision of like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it no matter what?
Yeah, well, I do think there was parts of, and again, it's like I do believe everything happens for me. And Lani's definitely been a catalyst for my empowerment. My God, she is going to move mountains. I've no doubt, given
Mm.
what she moved through while she was in utero and after. Um, but there was appeasing. I felt bad. He wanted a baby. I wanted one too, but there was this feeling in my body of like, oh, but our relationship isn't the best. Um, so I do think there was a double-sided of like, did I do that for me or did I do that for him? But then I come back to, well, she's here. So of course it was for me. So there's parts of my ego that come in sometimes, or that protector part, because I don't know what the future is going to hold. Like I have no idea what the future is going to hold in terms of a relationship, but that again, that is not the point of the relationship. It's two people who met to grow, you know? So it's kind of like, it doesn't matter how that looks. For me, it's more about who he becomes and who I become for our daughter. So,
Exactly right.
and it's a full detachment, and it's so selfless, if you want to, put it in the selfless, selfish category. Um, there's a higher power, there's a higher reason that we came together. And for some reason, it wasn't gelling at that time. And maybe this eruption needed to happen for whatever reason for us to become better, evolved people for our kids, for our future, for whatever's to come, who knows.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say that now because obviously I've probably already processed what I processed this morning. But sometimes I'm in that stage of I feel trapped, I feel lost, but again, I know it's that old version of me just hanging on for dear life,
Mm,
because
mm,
I don't know who the next version of me is going to be, but I do feel she's going to be powerful.
mm. And
Yeah,
I think it's what I love about what you just shared there is it's true. I mean, number one, you are going to be in each other's lives forever because you have a beautiful baby girl together. But there is also the fact that you will grow in ways that just simply weren't possible had you stayed together. And so
yeah,
it's really about stepping away to experience that growth. And then, I mean, the universe will decide whether or not
yeah.
that, that partnership resumes or whether you grow off and meet other people, and that's how it's meant to look. And one thing I really love and respect is that because of the work that you do, Laura,
Mm,
it will be a harmonious relationship. I
of
just know that
course.
about you. You're not going to be someone who is ever nasty or speaks ill of
Mm,
that person, because he's your daughter's father, and the impact that's going to have on Lani is
mm,
profound as well.
mm, mm.
Mm,
One of the things that I have found challenging, and I guess I probably, it's not landed properly, but I do feel called to share it, is the victim consciousness part, this triad of victim, villain, rescuer. And I think one of the things that I find really difficult, because I think when you go through a separation to start with and you project and you blame, there was full me going down the rabbit hole of narcissist and abuser and whatever, everything to take away from me at that time. And then you're sharing, like you're sharing your story with people, and obviously it sounds awful, it's awful what, when you care for someone and you can see them going through what they're going through. But then what I find really difficult, and I really would love for everyone to take this message, that everyone is on their own journeys. You cannot play God on that person's journey. You can try and convince them it's the wrong mistake, but that's your perception. Again, you don't know what's on the other side of it. You can sit there and go, do you remember everything that you said about what happened in the relationship? What about the abuse? What about the... And it's kind of like me, again, taking ownership of where I went into victim and project it out. But I think it's so important not to go into this triangle of victim, villain, rescuer, because you're almost left feeling that any choice, which is mine to move through, but any choice that I make is wrong because someone else is telling me it's wrong. And I feel like this is something that we all need to learn, Ash, is that we can't play God on people's journeys. It might not make sense to you. It might dysregulate if a friend or a family member or your kids, walking into the fire and you can see the fires are blazing and you're just like, I want to stop them. And this is one of the biggest things for me, is that I've never stopped my children, especially Elise. But what I've seen through Elise, me not stopping her and me guiding and saying, I'm here for you, she's never had to do it. She's like never had to go through the rebellious phases, and because she's not had to prove anything. But I think this is what's so important for all of us, that what people need is love and compassion and understanding. We don't need to understand what is going on for them. But when we can be that pillar of support, it doesn't mean that you have to put yourself in their energy all of the time if it's quite dense, or they're talking about, negative stuff all the time. That's different, and you can have a choice. But I feel like the biggest thing that I feel is really detrimental is when you become a part of that triangle and you become the rescuer, thinking that you have the answers for the victim, instead of actually holding them to a higher standard and getting them to trust that there is no right or wrong answer here for you. You've got to do what you do because you've got more lessons. And as you know, nothing that is for you will ever pass you by, like nothing. And it's a full trust, surrender, let go, and don't judge anything that you're going through. It's one of the hardest things. But I just really love, I think, because you feel so alone in the journey, which you are, and it's a part of your process. But when you feel people are trying to change your course of direction for their own agenda because they feel so uncomfortable, it makes it 1,000 times harder than it has to be.
How do you support women who are stuck in that rescuer archetype where, they say, I couldn't possibly leave because, they just wouldn't cope without me, or like they just have this real sense of responsibility that person needs them. I think as women, we're often needed by so many people. Like, I mean, how do you overcome that to actually create the change?
Are you talking in relationships or just in
Yeah.
general?
Yeah.
I had to full detach from Sam's little boy within him because I became the mother, and I can see who he is as a man, and he's beautiful. He's got the most beautiful heart, but also very armored. And when you can't see yourself, you can't see yourself. You're too busy protecting yourself from the world. So I had to fully detach and hand him back to the universe, because he wasn't mine to save. He wasn't mine to rescue. He wasn't mine to fix or save. So I could feel worthy. So this is where I started to notice the manipulative and controlling ways of me getting my needs met. It wasn't even about Sam. It was actually about me needing to be needed. So I was like, oh, this isn't actually about him. It's about me. So I have to hand, again, this is the playing God on people's journeys. I had to hand Sam's little boy back to him and trust that he can hold him through it. He can save him through it. Everything that I teach, but it's really hard to do in the moment when you recognize, oh my God, like I'm needing to be needed. I'm like exhausting myself trying to run around like a headless chicken and making the excuse of, oh, well, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? They're all shadow parts of us, the shadow of the martyr, the shadow of the good girl. I'm actually doing a program with the 7 main shadows that women hold. Such a powerful program because I've
What are
had
the
to
7
journey
shadows?
through it. There's, oh God, I can't remember off by heart, but there's the shadow of the nice girl, there's the shadow of the martyr, There's a
Yeah.
shadow of the over controller. There's a shadow of the
Mm.
hyper independence.
Yeah. Oh,
There's a
yeah. I
shadow
can relate
of,
to that one.
what was the other one? The shadow of, I can't remember, it was about the vulnerability piece. Um,
Mm.
I'll send them through to you so you can actually add
Yeah,
them
I'd
in
love
the
to.
show notes if you want to. But they're really profound, and I've been going through them as I've been creating the program, actually integrating them in myself, and the quite entrenched where I recognized I was making excuses for the particular behaviors I was showing up in, like but who's going to do it if I don't do it, because I wasn't willing to be vulnerable and say, hey, I need support in this, and actually delegate it out. And they show up
Yes.
in very sneaky ways, which then is so detrimental for us and disconnects us
Mm.
from and what we're really truly craving underneath all of that is connection.
Mm. And for somebody who, let's say, identifies that, then, because this is something I think is really interesting and something I've had to learn in my own relationship versus previous relationships, is when you have needs that are not being met, and the difference between asking for them to be met and your partner being able to step up, but maybe they don't step up perfectly, but you can see that they're trying, versus somebody who just has a full resistance to ever stepping up.
Mm.
Do you think that that's the sign then, as the person in the relationship who's not feeling fulfilled or had their needs met? Is that what you would say would be the turning point between, okay, you need to get honest with yourself, this isn't going to change, and therefore it's up to you to walk away if you want something different? Or, at what point do you, I guess,
I
keep
love
holding
that.
on, hoping for a change, versus like, actually, no, the writing's on the wall?
Yeah, I love that question because it was what I was in for a very long time. I was appreciating and I was just like, I was making myself wrong for wanting more was the issue. And
Yeah.
I was like, but I want it. I want more connection. I want more presence. I'm not asking you to go out and buy me a Mercedes and a big bloody $1 million mansion. What I'm wanting is more of you and more of me. And what I've come to understand is, a divine feminine woman is what we do. It's what we crave. And we are here to raise the collective, like, and evolve. And I read something really beautiful the other day about, if you're in a partnership with a woman, a divine feminine woman, she will expect you to rise every 12 months. And it's
Oh,
not
I love that.
yes. And it's not an expectation of like, I need this for me. It's that
Mm,
I'm growing, I'm evolving. We know who we are on a soul level. And are you going to continue to come with me? And
mm,
I've seen dynamics, stay together where that hasn't happened, and the guy has just held this beautiful foundation for the woman to keep rising, and they have this beautiful, like, partnership, um, which is really beautiful. And I think it's different for each one of us. But for me, it's like I want those conversations.
mm,
I want them. And I want
mm,
us to sit down every New Year's Eve and plan out the next 6 months of how we're just going to create life together in our own ways, but
mm,
talking about that and how we can support each other and elevate each other. And that's the stuff that I was finding really difficult because, like, Sam was really confronted by that because of he had to face parts of himself where I was just like, let's go,
let's go, let's go. Yeah.
Yes. So what I find is, like, I would be shrinking myself at times because I didn't want to confront him, and I didn't want to demasculate him. But I wasn't doing it through saying it. I was doing it through my actions because it was, again, a mirror reflection.
Mm,
And that's where a lot of our challenges happened, I guess, where he wanted to step up, but he felt like he could never reach me, and then he didn't feel good enough. And, vice versa, I didn't feel worthy enough. Why wasn't he wanting to make this work as much as me? There was just so many wounded parts of us. But the question you're asking is, I guess it's a choice. For me,
mm,
it's a
mm,
no. I
mm,
tried. And
mm,
you can love and accept and, adore someone for where they're at and see that they're just not ready yet. That's okay. But for me to keep evolving in the way that I want to evolve in terms of my mission and what I'm here to create, I really need someone in that energy doing that in their own way. or at least being willing to look at themselves and being like, why am I playing small? Why am I not stepping into my greatness? And, that might be that they want to build Lego for the rest of their life. I don't care what it is, just get on a purpose and make it happen so we can be in that
Yeah.
energy together. And I feel like it's actually you being unapologetic about what you actually want and not making it wrong, that you actually want
Yeah.
more, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that that person's not enough or that they're not good enough, but you desire more. And if you don't go after that, you're neglecting and self-abandoning, which is reaffirming your wounds.
I'm just like, yep, nodding along. I mean, it just all makes such perfect sense. And it just reminds me what you said about the start with that being in energetic alignment with someone as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's really beautiful because I do work with couples where their partners are kind of like in these phases. And the women are just, working with me and continuing to evolve. And they're just kind of like, and then the women are getting really frustrated and resentful. And then obviously that's something they need to look at and work with about why they're trying to drag and save and rescue and why is it frustrating, because that's that whole needing to be needed again. And what you find is that when they continue in their own lane and rise, like I said, it's either the man will continue to do it in his own way or he won't. And it's the same what I was saying with Sam. Like, even though we've both gone our separate ways, we have both gone deeper than we've ever gone. And now we're finding our own ways to evolve. And the conversations that are happening now are just beautiful and expansive, but it's not about our relationship. It's about independently, careers. And so when we've spoken, it's been about that stuff. And you can go into that. I used to do this in relationships where you used to go into like, oh, why is he doing that now?
Yes. Oh, totally. Yeah. Or like you break up with someone and then they get married and you're like, oh, they get the version. Like, you hear it happen all the time.
But that's that victim consciousness again.
Yeah.
It's you thinking about you instead of being really happy that someone else is flourishing. And something that I heard when it comes to soul corrections is that when we're resentful towards somebody else, or we not wish harm on somebody else, but let's be honest, we've all been there when we're wanting power over men, which is a shadowy part of us. We want them to suffer, and we want them to be in pain. But when we actually feel that energetically, we're bound. So if they fall, we fall too. And that's what you've got to remember.
Oh, okay. I need you to repeat that one more time because that was spicy.
So because we're energetic beings and everyone's a mirror. Like, if you do believe this, I believe we were all one soul and it became fragmented. So everyone is us and we are them. So if you are wanting someone to suffer, we all have been there, women, let's be honest. I want him to, I don't know, whatever that shadowy part of you projects, that they need to go into pain like you are because you don't want to be it on your own. That when you want them to fall, you hold resentment towards someone. This is why we've got to let go of resentment for ourselves. That energetically, if they fall, we fall too. We learn lessons, we meet similar challenges. And for me, I'm like, no thanks. I wish you so
not here
well.
for it. Yes.
And that's even like the parts of like what comes up for you when you end a relationship, the stories of like, oh my God, he's going to go off and meet someone now and they're going to have this really beautiful, and the hyper focus is on them. And again, it just shows where our focus isn't on us and our worth and what we're deserving of. And, again, you don't know what's going to happen, but you're hyper focusing on them living this amazing life. And what about you?
Totally. What are you calling
about
him?
you? And that's when we need to shift. And I've been doing that a lot recently and envisioning my home on the ocean and the energy, not a person, but the energy of a person. My kids walking in with the dogs and the kids, and me serving just, women globally to step into their power and really own their soul corrections and why they're here. And that gets you to refocus. And don't get me wrong, your mind will sometimes go back and hyper focus, but that's because we have a pattern as women to put others before ourselves. And this is rewiring that pattern. That's all it is. So it's a journey. Ash,
It
but I am not going
certainly is.
to get off the roller coaster. I'm here for it. So
Oh, you're amazing, Laura. Honestly, I
thank you.
can't thank you enough for coming here today and for sharing in your rawness and your realness. I just admire you. I feel so blessed to call you a friend and to
Thank
be so
you.
close to witness this journey. You know, you are just amazing, and you're so inspiring for your clients, for the community, for women as a whole. Like,
Mm,
you just are someone that I will always turn to and continue to really enjoy watching you grow.
thank
We
you.
have a closing tradition on the
Yes.
podcast, which is a question that I love to finish on with all guests. So I'd love to ask you now, Laura, what are your 3 non-negotiables that allow you to live happy, authentic, and free?
Oh God, these would have changed dramatically from the last one.
Mm,
So my 3 non-negotiables is that I will not absorb the energy of others. What is
mm,
theirs is theirs. What is mine is mine.
mm.
Um, Number 2 is I will always follow what feels right for me, regardless of the judgments of others, is a non-negotiable. And number 3 is nature, constantly, all day, every day at the
Beautiful.
moment.
I love
Yes.
it. Thank you so, so much for
I love
sharing
it.
those. Now, if
Thank
people
you.
want to track you down, follow you, where should they
Yeah.
go?
Come along to Instagram at Her Successful Mind is where you will
Mm.
find me just sharing. My message has just changed, obviously, because I have into so much more potent, empowering content. So yeah, absorb it. Love on
Amazing.
yourselves.
Awesome. I'll make sure I pop that info in the episode show notes. Laura, we say here on Behind the Smile that when we recover loudly, no one need suffer in silence. So thank you so, so much for being your gorgeous self and for being here today.
Thanks, Ash.
A big thank you for tuning in today. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by hitting the follow button and leaving a rating and review. Each rating and review helps this podcast become more discoverable so more people can hear these stories of strength and hope. Remember to reach out to those you care about, and I'll be back next week. Until then.